During presentation, I don't desire anybody to go outside. When finished, you can take a rest for 5 minutes, but not during presentation. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I and my team are going to present about the changing legal emphasis of Chapter 2 of our course at okay. So today we are going to discuss about the rights, the human rights and the employment rights which everyone has in each of their country, whether they are international or whether they are the citizens of this country. Every country in the world has their own human rights, some constitution laws, which every citizen of that nation has to follow to be very specific and have a peaceful living in their country. If we talk about Canada, Canada is also having its constitutional laws and legal framework. The legal framework for employment is mainly framed for the employers for their official rights and freedom at their workplace. If we talk about the present area, 90% of employment workforce are governed by provincial or territorial employment laws, and remaining 10% are governed by the civil services, crown corporations, and agencies. And there are 14 jurisdictions in Canada, 10 provinces, and 3 territories in Canada, as which affects all the employment law for the person who are working. Every person at their workplace should be aware of their legal rights and should always fight for the right when they are discriminated for the sex, group, sex orientation, religion, or any kind of racism. Now we'll discuss about the Charter of Rights and Freedom. Charter of Rights mainly stresses on the free and the democratic society, and it has the following rights which are found under the Charter of Rights. They are freedom of conscience and religion. It means that everyone has the right to follow any religion and can accept all the religions and make a very diversified atmosphere around them. And freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and has the right to speak in media openly in the society. No one is judged or controlled by any person. Everyone has right to everyone has right to present themselves in their society as what they are. The other one is freedom of peaceful assembly. One should always maintain peace for the better living in one's nation. Freedom of association is also one of the law under the Charter of Rights. If we talk about the human rights legislation, every employee in Canada is affected by the human rights legislation to all intentional and unintentional discrimination and policy. If we go at a workplace or just walking around the street, sometimes you are discriminated intentionally. As Canada is so multicultural, you will find all different kind of people whom you never know about in your past. But they don't feel, everyone doesn't accept other people in this country. So you have the right to fight for yourself when you are discriminated. This government of Canada has given you a chance to fight for yourself and get a good place in this country. Every employer in Canada is affected by human rights and its policies. All jurisdiction prohibits discrimination around the race, color, religion, sex, marital status, age, physical and mental disability, and sex orientation. Every human, not only in Canada but all over the world, has the right to fight for its right and live freely. Now I'll hand over to my student who will talk about the other employment rights in Chapter 2.
Thank you, Payal. Alright, guys. The main point is looking in the HRM is the human rights legislation, the standard legislation. Then, as Payal told you guys, that there is some kind of the standard for the employment is measured. Like there is some of the laws created for the employees just because of the managing for achieving the common goal. There is some kind of the rules and regulations are built for the organization employees, so they can work up to the law regarding this law, so they can work together. So anyone knows that what is the meaning of team? Team means, you know. What is the term mean? Team. Anyone can guess?
People work together to achieve a goal.
Yeah, you are right. The total is together. Everything. For achieving the common goal, we have to work together. But how they can work together? Just if they are following the rules and regulations with the teamwork, then also they can work together. But if there is some kind of some of the violence is we find, this is not good for the organization. So they are just some kind of their laws they are created for the employment, like under this the minimum wages. There is some kind of every employees have some of the minimum wages is already mentioned in the organization that he have to work up to 8 hours or something. If he works more than 8 hours, so he have to pay the extra for the overtime. So this is the second thing. The other thing, there is some of the paid holidays is already given to the employment for the employee. Some of the vacations also given to the employees. Say if there is a employee is not good or is sick, so at that time they also give some of the cow leaves also they can get by the employee. And the overtime pays, there is also some of the employee they can get. And the other law for the organization they are created like international law, criminal law, contract law, common law, administrative law, and so on. So just because of the work in a good organization, some of the rules and regulations are created. So now the video which gives some of the highlights to how the legislation works in organization.
What are the legal considerations when writing an employment policy manual? Hi, I'm Jim White of JSW and Associates. For over 13 years now, I've been working with a wide range of employers in Ontario to develop highly customized documentation like employment policy manuals, job descriptions, and operational procedures manuals. Employers in Ontario are impacted by a maze of legislation. Most employers are aware that the most significant piece of legislation affecting the workplace is the Employment Standards Act. It is the primary piece of legislation that deals with the employment relationship. Most employers are also aware, at least of the existence, of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. However, many employers believe that it was written just for the large manufacturing operations. The small office poses no danger, so the legislation doesn't apply, right? Very wrong. If you have as few as one employee, you, the employer, have a legislated obligation to provide a safe and healthy work environment. The Act does apply. Other pieces of legislation, along with the associated regulations that impact the workplace in Ontario, include the Ontario Human Rights Code or the Canada Human Rights Act for those companies that are covered by federal legislation, the Labour Relations Act, the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act, the Employment Insurance Act, the Pay Equity Act, the Canada Elections Act, the Ontario Elections Act, and the Ontario Municipal Act, the Economic Development and Workplace Democracy Act, the Pension Benefits Act, the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, the Juries Act, and the Personal Information Protection and Electronics Document Act, also known as PIPEDA. There's also numerous industry-specific pieces of legislation. Your employment practices must conform to every piece of legislation that impacts your business. You cannot contract out of your legislated obligations. I hope you found this video informative. If you would like to learn more about other types of essential documentation required by Ontario employers, go to policymanual.ca, where you can get access to my entire series of 20 videos and receive a free copy of my guide to developing essential workplace documentation. Hope to see you there.
Hello guys, my topic is common law. common law is formed by decisions previously made by court and not imported by the legislators or the other government officials. These common law cases are basically defended on the past court decisions, and it is formed in government official rather than legislative actions. Common laws, basically the common law example is common law marriage. Common law right marriage, this relationship that arises when a couple lives together for a certain period of time and presents themselves as a married couple, though there is no formal relationship as in the couples. Basically, this system is formed in England and all the British colonies which are included in British empires. Basically, British colonies are the one English-speaking countries, and in English-speaking countries there are United States, England, Canada, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Australia, and India, and many more countries. This system is seen in just these countries, which is English-speaking countries, and the foundation of this form is basically dependent on the torts, property, and the contract. Now, about the contract law, more information will be provided by Hero Patel.
Good afternoon, friends. My topic is contract law. Basically, contract law and common law, which is related to each other. So, this is not a very big topic, but as we know, contract word is everyone aware of the contract law. What? So, what is contract?
A written acknowledgement of a deal.
Of two parties or more.
Yeah, exactly. The contract is basically a set of promise that two parties come together and they will promise each other to their duties and responsibilities. Like in companies, like we are going for a job, then we have to sign agreement. So what is that? They have an offer. So offer means they are giving us offer like they are offering us a job, and contract contains most acceptance letter, so that we can know that they have job, and then performance, like our duties and responsibility, what we have to do in our job, and what are our duties, and then what is our rules and regulation. Like in a plastic factory, we have some rules and regulation that we have to wear safety glasses, safety shoes, and then hand gloves and all that. So this is our rules and regulation. And except contract law, basically it has amount of pay, what are your sick leaves, and all that information. And the most important thing is, I will provide you an example. How many do you have mobile phones? I think everybody have mobile phones, right? Yes. And how many of you are using Wind Mobile? Okay. So what is your plan for Wind Mobile?
$40 for unlimited anything?
Yeah. But basically you have contract, right?
No.
No, you don't have contract.
No.
But my friend Mansi, she has a 3 years contract, like 3 years agreement for mobile phone. So what happens if you break the contract? You have to pay particular amount for instrument if you break the contract. So it is term for contract law. If you break contract, then it costs a lot, right? Or you will be in trouble. So it is contract law. Okay, and I'm giving you mark.
Hello, first of all, I want to say sorry for my English because I'm new here and maybe I have to improve it. So I'm going to talk about the principle of equal pay for equal work, which is included in the Canadian constitutional law. And well, this principle is focused on prohibiting different kinds of discrimination among men and women at work. Well, the discrimination can be prevented by giving equal pay and equal work for both of the genders. Well, for example, majority of women work in a small number of jobs, such as nursing, teaching, sales, this type of jobs. So this is called occupational segregation. it refers to the existence of certain jobs that have traditionally been male-dominated, also there are jobs traditionally been female-dominated. So, in addition, there is another barrier called glass ceiling. It is an invisible barrier caused by organizational bias, which limits the opportunities of qualified group members. Well, nowadays there are many employment programs for reaching the equity, like a detailed plan designed to identify and correct discrimination, and achieve a balanced representation of group members in an organization. Now she's going to.
Hello everybody. My topic is diversity management. Diversity management is basically the activities designed to integrate all members of the organization and use their diversity to enhance the firm's effectiveness. There are many social and ethical responsibility issues which involve in embarrassing diversity. Employees with different ethnic background often possess foreign language skills with different knowledge, culture, and with different business practices can establish tradings in other nations which can lead to a competitive advantage. Diversity in management can be done in many different methods. First, like we have creating an inclusive environment. In this, there are many ways in which an organization can do. First one is the top management commitment. In this, one should have a commitment to the top management because as it is the first initiative to involve in any organization. Then integration of diversity initiatives and talent management. In this, diversity and inclusion initiative work best when they are integrated into recruiting, training, development, and planning process. Then diversity training programs. These are those programs in which they can give the knowledge about the diversity issues and educating employees about the specific type of differences. Then sport groups. Some of the organizations establish sport groups to provide a means for employees with similar backgrounds to share their experiences. For example, IBM encourages employees to form clubs like Black Network Group and Aboriginal People Network. Critical relationship network. In this, we have to think critically about where informal networking takes place and how this may exclude certain groups. Then open dialogue. Firms that want to ensure that employees do not feel the need to suppress their true feelings, true identities in order to fit in and encourage to open dialogue to address sensitive issues. And there is a management responsibility and accountability. Supervisors and managers should be accountable and their results are part of their formal assessment and if they want to achieve their diversity in management. That's it.
So now it's time for a conclusion, and I want to ask you a question like, what did you learn from our presentation today? Can anyone answer? So
Contract law and diversity management and common law, so many things.
okay. What? So it's all about the law, right?
Yep.
Like, which are the laws? Then
Contract law, marriage law.
yeah. So it's all the chapter 2 is basically depending on the law, which laws we have for the employment. Okay, now
So this is the chapter which highlights some of the points which in the organizations have some of the rules and regulations, legislations which is created for the wellness of the organization member, so then they can work nicely and the safe environment, so the organization can achieve their goal nicely. So this is the whole summary of the chapter. That's why the common law and every law which is created just for the benefit of every employee, so that the employee can work nicely in a work together. At the same example, like we have also worked together in the starting of the class, that we work in a team so that we can get the answers quickly and we can share the ideas. So this is by that we can solve the problems and get the new ideas. So same things if you have in an organization, if you have any kind of the problem or any kind of the violence is going on, so there is some kind of the rights or some of the rules or regulations that you can fill up the form or you can complain that person, so that solution can become an arise. So this is the whole the rules and regulations built for the organizations. So this is the whole summary of the chapters.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.